Hi everyone. I'm Grant. I see some faces I know. Um, uh, all good? All good. Okay. So today I just want to talk to you guys really about what I've been working on for the last 2 years in different ways, which is what is the future of our whole world as means of production collapse and as we rewrite how we do things and as we have new opportunities to build new experiences for people with all of the emerging technology that's happening right now. A lot of that stuff right now is fairly simple. Like my nice little volumetric capture here. This was one camera shot off an iPhone and rendered in 10 minutes, right? So, like, we're moving fast. A year and a half ago, this same thing was 45 minutes or an hour and a half, depending on your GPU or longer. And so, as we march forward, we're entering a new era of how we can hyperconnect and build experiences across all the mediums that we currently work in today. So that's what we've been framing that as living media. And it was interesting as got ready for this conference. One thing I noticed in all of the descriptions of things is the word living. Like the word living is appearing everywhere because how do we reconcile what it means to produce media that's no longer static and that interacts in a bunch of ways? So we see like basically a world where all the things you care about as an audience member, as someone experiencing entertainment, start interweaving together. So, over the course of your day, your month, your life, you're curated a lot of content. Every single second, you're curated content. That is creating an experience of how we produce media and how we interact with media. So going forward, assuming we're interacting across all of these channels with our audience, across their mobile phones, when they're at home, when they're at the show, when they're walking through and doing a journey of some sort through some crazy world somebody's created, um, does that all stay in a box? Do we keep building in boxes? Is that the future that we just build in our isolated box and then the audiences go elsewhere? Or do we branch out? And so that's a lot of what I've been thinking around living media, around this convergence of physical, digital, interactive, and passive. And you've got amusement parks, sports sitting on one side of that, live shows, books, movies, TV, music, game world, social networks. They all sit in a place where they um, command a lot of our thought, our attention, and what is media is curating to our eyeballs here. So that's what brought me and Steve, my co-founder in Infinite Spaces, together was to start working on what does that look like for creatives, for audiences, and how do we build something healthier and more sustainable that isn't burning people out, that is giving audiences the never ending demand for content that they desire and that they almost expect at this point because of digital media. Um, yeah, Infinite Spaces, I'm just gonna give you a quick overview of that, is a living media lab. We are based in, oh, am I not following anymore? I'm not following anymore. Stand by. My presence has been interrupted. Maybe that's just not working. We're gonna go here. Okay. Yeah. So Infinite Spaces is the platform for what comes next. So Infinite Spaces is the living media lab and studio that me and Steve founded here on this mission to build a more sustainable ecosystem. A little bit about who we are. Um, I've been building stages since I was 16, and I worked in high school theater and in the local production company in Oklahoma. And then I got to build some of the biggest stages in the world. Um, 10 nights at Alexandra Palace with Fred again. Steve handled all the broadcasting infrastructure for tons of sporting events like Champions League. Um, one of the most alive shows I've ever got to be a part of. Helped get Music of the Spheres off the ground and launched into what is now like 400 shows or whatever. And then Steve also, prior to us starting Infinite Spaces, was at Twitch. And so the two of us have really been working in screen spaces around gathering audiences around media. And we really want to scale that beyond the screen here. So we've been lasering in on what does that look like and what does this era we're going into where we don't exactly even know what it's going to look like. We don't know who we need to hire. We don't exactly know what the production's going to even look like in 5 years, because things that we spend massive amounts of money on right now and time are going to become instantaneous. So there's a lot of, in my eyes, and I feel it from a lot of my friends, it's a lot of people searching for, where do I sit? What is the future for me going forward as a creative technologist, as a producer, as a production manager across our whole swath here? How do any of us start to look to interact with this? So a couple things, we basically kind of have started to cover what is living media. I want to go over kind of where we are today and then where we are going. So just skip that. So a little bit more into what is living media, at least from our definition, and it's reactive, aware, and guided, right? So if a piece of media is truly living, you would never experience it the same twice, right? Like if you have truly made a piece of generative living media, no one should ever see it the same. You walk into the park, the leaves have changed, right? Our worlds digitally are very simple right now, but they're about to get immensely complex. Awareness, right, I think is kind of the linchpin here, because it's where we, as audience members, decide how we step into a space. Because as we go forward here, and as every one of us puts a bajillion cameras in a room and starts gathering data on people, tracking their faces, making some character appear, the privacy implications and the security implications and the data problems that we can generate as creatives, and the nastiness we can put light to without even meaning it, is immense. So how do we, as the people architecting, building these spaces, provide a safe space? Because as soon as entertainment's not safe, it's not entertainment anymore. So when you walk into a space, you choosing how you're represented, you choosing what part of your persona, your data profile enters the space, because everybody's going to be asking a lot of you, and they're going to just be haphazardly connecting all your accounts just to service whatever thing they've done. And all of that is now training data in whatever services they decided to use. And they may not even know what services they decided to use. So awareness for me is a big point, because I think it's also where the magic lies of storytelling. It's where we let audience members become roles in a show. It's also where we let them decide to be the peanut gallery, or be the hero, right? So how they choose, how they enter a space, whether digitally, physically, wherever that might be, and how that translates across. Because look at things like the new arena in LA, the Ballmer Arena. What's it called? What is it? Intuit, yes, Intuit, right? Like with its completely hyper connected tracking of you, every time you come back, they're building a profile on you, right? So Minority Report's coming, right? And it's coming fast. And those of us that shape media and experience, I think, have the tools and the power right now to help the world decide how that stuff is used. Um, that all kind of flows into the guided part here. Most of what we talk about, AI, any of this buzzword bingo that we play right now, um, I think the capitalist likes to dream of a world where you can just throw something in and then you get something out, right? But humans are messy. Humans care about novel things. And the storyteller and how we give them the tools in this future to steer, to drive, to synthesize, but at their control. Because going into the future of all this synthesized, personalized media and content, the one thing I'm sure of is that I trust the artist and the barkeep to decide what I see and how I see it a lot more than I trust Facebook, right? And so giving power to the storyteller and giving them a tool set to build that living media. Um, and so I want to share with you guys this timeline that we had actually put together a little while ago for something, and I found it, I don't know, it's entertaining. So we're going to talk about it. So, you know, where and how do we engage with media is really what I'm talking a lot about, right? So I just kind of clumped it up here, right? We've got this pre-feed era of media. That's when culture lived in theaters, venues, broadcast clubs, and audience gathered together, right? And then in the feed era, media is centralized on all these online platforms, and then algorithms shaped what we saw. And culture became infinite, became everybody had their silo, their place to call home, right? And but it became flattened because culture thrives on the diversity of of the people that are involved in it, and otherwise it flattens out. And so we've made a ton of niche subculture silos that need to come back together. And I think that's actually kind of what we're seeing right now with everybody desiring to be back in a physical space together. So then currently we're in what we were just calling the immersive shift, where everybody is immersive, immersive, immersive. And it's like, well, I mean, I don't know. I look at a lot of people in this room, we've been doing immersive forever. We just didn't call it that, right? It was like, okay, whatever you guys want to call it. And then going forward here, the current kind of hot topic is really, to me, this AI personalized media. So it's what every social network's working on. It's what every image gen's working on, which is basically to enable brands marketing first, because that's where money is, um, to hyper personalized media back to you. So right now we get fed personalized content, but it's the content itself isn't personalized. So, at some point your dead grandmother's going to come up and try to sell you soap, you know, because like that's how far like people will take it, right? Like we're going to see it all. We're going to see it all, right? And so then what we see though is as this all congeals and all this technology comes together in different ways, we enter what I was calling living media, right? We enter this living media era where um, internet network technology has gotten um, mainly low latency and bi-directional enough, because right now we still kind of live in a one directional world of the internet. What's your upload speed, I ask. And as we bridge that, and as edge systems where we can run compute on the ground and in the cloud, and everything becomes hyper connected, and what's rendering where, nobody knows, but it somehow gets to my eyeballs and my glasses and my contacts on the walls, wherever. Let's go to the next slide here. Um, Actually, let me finish on the living media. The As we go into that world of invisible compute and invisible media systems that are just kind of personalizing the world around you as you walk around it, um, I think it's helpful to look back at where we came from, and it probably looks where we came from probably looks a lot like where we're going. Um, so like time of communications, we have like a pre-industrial era where we're painting on cave walls, we develop written language, we write on manuscripts, right? And then we move into a print era where we're printing books. Then we move into a mass media era where we're just broadcasting out everywhere. And then we go into this digital internet era. We're in the social media era, and then we're in this living media era. What's the common denominator between all of these? Anybody? No? I mean, this is my talk, so I don't expect any to know, but new stages is a trick question. Nobody's gonna know. It's a trick question. Here, do you want to get a picture of that one? Okay. Um, so the thing that I would correlate between all of these is every era here we develop new stages. And so what are stages? Stages are integrations of technology in service of performance and showcasing. So every era here we've invented new stages, whether it's YouTube, online, Twitch, or if it was the Greeks putting up an amphitheater, you know. So that's this whole world of stuff colliding here. And there's a lot of dimensions and people live in all of these spaces. I think that's the thing to remember is like, where are people spending their time? And um, we as like people who build spaces, entertainment that bring people together are more important than ever right now because everybody's scattered. And so we have the power to enable culture to actually physically come together. And God knows we need that more than ever. So like the evolution of stages from that early Roman amphitheaters to, the the full kitted out but classic theater, and then all the way to things like the Sphere these days, right? Um, and so what does that post AI stage look like? And we'll skip through some of this because I already said it. Though endless ways to share have been created, like I said, the ones that matter are the ones that bring us together. These algorithms separated us into little boxes, curating our thoughts, our culture, and our time. And these silos have grouped us into these monocultures and community feedback loops here. And shared spaces provide that time and space for cultures to meld and for art to really take hold in our minds and hearts, right? Which is how we grow, because the artist pushes the thought and forces us to think about it. And so, really currently online spaces are small and static. Even something as your largest game, right, like a Fortnite or something, there's 100 people in there. That's a tiny club, y'all. That is literally all we can manage to put together online in one space is 100 people. World of Warcraft was doing it better than we do it now, you know, 20 years ago. So somebody riddle me that one. So that's where it really brings me to what is the future of media and why did I call this talk anything to do with a garden, right? Um, Most of my life, I was chasing tools, right? I was learning how to edit, I was learning how to operate a camera, I was learning 3D, I was learning CAD, I was learning something so that I could produce the thing to get into the position I wanted to be in, right? And that's, we were taught to go develop your skills so that you can get out there and be a useful member of society. And so as AI comes about and starts rewriting what we can produce, what one person can produce, right? And what a team can produce. And all of a sudden, it doesn't really matter what knowledge you have because you have an infinite knowledge machine right beside you, right? And for most of my life, especially in live production, there's a lot of people that get paid a lot of money because they just know the one button to press. And I've made a lot of money that way myself. So no knocking any of that. But um, those single channels of production where you're one person doing one output, I think is the artist now. And the business and the operators, the engineers are steering and orchestrating whole fleets of agentic services, of AIs, going through your production stack from the CAD to the content, right? It's like all the Saudi shows where you've got to, curate and really like respect their culture and make sure every single artist and DJ coming in doesn't cause any issue to disrespect their history, their culture. All of that stuff becomes way more automated. So the way we can filter and curate and like um really give the artist freedom, but then put the controls we need in place. I think is one thing that really gets me excited because we can let the artist be free, but we can build a system that pulls it back down when things get too weird, and that. So I guess I kind of lost the plot on the garden though. Let me go back to the garden. Hold on. What's the plot on the garden? I lost the plot on the garden. Okay, so as a creative, one of the things I struggle with most in live production is why. Um, my whole life, I feel like I've just been battling, like, okay, but why are we doing this? What needs to be accomplished? Because ultimately, we have oftentimes are in situations where there's 5 million things that need to be accomplished, but realistically, there's only one, which is a show that nobody asked for a refund from. Um, and as we eliminate some of those struggles of production, and I don't have to worry about, is what I just asked too much for my creative team? Is it too much for my animators? Is it too much for the time frame? Right? And the business starts asking for more and faster and harder. How do you maintain yourself as a creator? How do you not just become some thing getting siphoned by all these AI tools that you're being given to use from these companies, right? Because just like they drain us right now, and we're all a part of that, a lot of us own companies, like we all struggle with this of like asking a lot of people. And sometimes it's too much. And so for creatives that if they lose their spark, they lose the product. Their product is that audience experience. It is the moment of magic for people. It's not as tangible of a value. It's not a 4RU rack of something, right? And so how do we maintain that, respect that, and let that evolve and not become just slop? And the the creative, the artist knows the answer already because they're not searching for the output. They're searching for the journey of the output, right? Like no artist is like just sitting there like there's an artist that transitions to being a manufacturer, but then the purest of the artists is not worrying about the output. They're forced to make the output so that they can take their journeys, right? And that's how the world lets them take their journeys regularly and support their life, is that they make this output. So I think in the future here, if you think about a production timeline here from ideation, initial concepting to delivery, post production, ideation, concepting, blue skying for creatives and how they maintain their context. So, as a creative right now, I've been telling every single one of my friends, put all your ideas in plain text, put them in storage that you control, right? And do not have them in Google Docs. Have them literally old school in a file, in a folder that you can action at any time. Because as these tools get better and better, your novel context that you can bring into something is going to be the thing everybody wants. Because everybody's going to have the same tools otherwise. And so there's still a tremendous value in the creative and allowing them to garden, not just making them faster outputs, more outputs. Like, I think we're in danger of disrespecting the time it takes to develop the context and intention for anything to have meaning. And it's not just about the output. And that's the conversation I think that AI to me brings up more than anything, which is it's not just about the output. Because who the fuck cares? Sorry, I don't know. Can I curse on the live stream? Um, so that's the garden, which is how do we build our production teams and give them the space and don't just try to crank the wheel as hard because we'll ruin the experience. And the moment we start dropping the experience, the quality of experience and everything, people will just go elsewhere. Um, and so in this era of living media, your value isn't what access to the tools you have, but what intent you give those tools, right? And so that growing of living media really being this for a creative, collecting your intent, your context, and then pulling that into somewhere that has constraints. And that's where I think a lot of us that create the spaces come to play, which is the constraints. Um, and those constraints, as we get into hyper personalized audience interactivity where you walk up to a wall and start talking to a character, these constraints become psychological, they're also physical, they're safety, they're everything, because these are just endless little Pandora boxes that in misguided hands could take people off in all sorts of bad places. I mean, look at a lot of the lawsuits that are happening right now around characters and AI and children and all of that. And it's terrifying. I can't imagine being a parent right now, right? So for those that build spaces, we have to make them safe and we have to build the right constraints into them. And so like the tools of today, we're looking at a lot of things like obviously you got like Sora, you've got your very early kind of video gens here, you've got vision tracking, really starting to come into its own finally. I feel like we've been talking about it forever in live entertainment. And finally, we're getting to the place where we can actually start reasonably using it all over the place. And then we have really what has happened in the last 12 months here, really since '03, I would say, released, where thinking and reasoning coming into these models, at least from my experience so far, has drastically exponentially amplified the use of any of these services to me. Um, the amount of research I can do, the way I can fire off and put a directive together, and then for it to go do it, come back to me, and we work back and forth like that. I mean, it's like having you got your own McKinsey consultant in your pocket, you know. So it's uh it's been a big move. So tools of tomorrow, um, that we're like really kind of lazy on because there's a lot, is world models. So models that represent varying levels of fidelity of fully synthesized or our current world, but really, you know, AI models that understand physics, that understand space, that understand size, time, and all of that. And then we've got our Minority Report, um, personalized media systems coming, and on the fly interfaces. So I think the future of compute here starts to look quite different because the way we interface with it becomes dynamic to us. So no longer do you open Photoshop and go, why is there 10,000 things I don't care about? You get the five you need in your tool set to do the thing you're trying to do. Um, and then what I'm just calling the instruments of the future, um, where I think all of this stuff becomes very quickly to a maturity point where we can start treating media production as an instrument we play because it's happening so fast. And we have, like I started with live volumetric capture is early days here, but moving fast. And in the next couple years, we're finally going to start getting volumetric video, and we'll start to be able to bring that in more and more closer to real time. Um, we're across the entire media landscape developing generative and branching storylines and worlds everywhere. I mean, it's just kind of happening naturally with people using it, but then as that becomes intentional on these platforms, that's gonna just go in a bunch of dimensions that at least on the digital realm, I think probably um, creates so much noise that it becomes hard to care about any of it, which is where I think you care about coming together in a physical space a lot more. And then, we've got this invisible compute, is the way I like to think about it, revolution happening with kind of we took everything to the phone and then we're blowing it back out, right? Like auxiliary devices with microphones, with did everybody just light up at once? That was crazy, y'all. It's like Pix Mob in here. Um, and so invisible compute, you've got contacts, we've got neural links, we've got hand tracking, we've got, body tracking, and we've got facial tracking, we've got eye tracking. I mean, the way the compute system will just interact to you as a human, and we don't have to interface with it in some arbitrary way, is going to be fun for us that build entertainment, I think, because we can really make some magic. So just kind of recap on some of the current tech stuff, like no, skip to the, like, let it start. Uh, the thing we've been looking at is like how quickly can we capture right now, right? So like I shot this the day before yesterday. We left just outside of our office here. One iPhone shot, just walk around, and a web-based stack to do all of the rendering and animation, right? And had it done in about 30 minutes and about 15 minutes of rendering. Right. So, for those of us that have watched like several of these evolutions happen, it's just the same thing happening again. We're getting closer and closer to real time here with those. These are a couple of the things we've been playing around with just to stay up to date on that, which is what is the reality of hyper connecting a web-based experience that is deploying via cellular. So the window installation you see there was all on 5G running Unreal and in a virtual off of virtual production cloud. And then the picture on the right there is May, who went to NYU. I say that like somebody's gonna know who she is, but she's amazing. And she's been building a bunch of lab experiments for us around hand tracking, and we've been kind of moving between all the tools that are providing hand tracking, just seeing who's providing the like kind of latest off the shelf ready to go thing. And right now that is still very intensive, right? Like to do one set of hands is taking you a whole GPU, basically a whole server in some sense. Um, and the thing that's coming so quickly is dedicated hardware to do all of this, to get your hand tracking, to get all of that stuff. There's so much happening in that space that how many hands do you want to track will be the question here soon enough, not okay, you get one little zone where you can track one hand. And so as all of that stuff evolves, we come back to living media. And the convergence for us is is in physical space. What happens when the space becomes an entity? Because that's basically what we're saying in a lot of ways, is like the space reacts, the space is aware, right? So we don't have AGI now. Supposedly one day we'll have it. If we one day have it, what becomes of the space? What becomes of production design? And God, that is very sorry, live stream. Everybody's lighting up and mine's broken. Are we ready for Q&A? 3 more minutes? Okay, so I'll just finish up here. So living media being our idea of the future here, in that we're going to combine all of these things. And audiences are going to go on journeys that might last 12 months or they might last 3 minutes. And those journeys will take them across multiple sites, multiple localities, physical, digital, and they'll be able to have one coherent storytelling, IP, in-world experience through, right? And so as we build the convergence point for audiences that interact with all of these mediums of gathering here, um, we have a lot of choices to make, and we get to decide the future we live in here right now, because everyone's coming for the physical world right now. Everybody's been focused up in the clouds, and then everybody's shifting their attention to the physical world. And as that happens, I think the people in this room, the people at this conference, the people on the live stream we're at the forefront of it, because we're where real-time technology, physical space is converging with audiences. And so just like we get to be guinea pigs for every other technology, we're going to be guinea pigs for this one too. So that's the end. It's your cue. That's always the key. Actually, so when we go into Q&A here, Steve, I'd love if you'd come up. Hey, I didn't tell him that, so I'm gonna have him come up and do the Q&A with me. Moderate? Well, no, I'd love for you to moderate also. I mean, let's just make it a thing.
We don't have any questions online, right? Okay.
No, they all left.
With the striped shirt, you're someone else first, though.
Hi,
And don't forget to repeat the question for like.
Got it.
so that was really interesting. I'm sort of wondering, like, a lot of the stuff you're talking about, some of it seems like prediction and some of it seems like aspiration. And I was wondering if you give us like, I don't know, just a briefly, like, what is the version of the world like that you want to see, like, relative to what the things you're talking about here, and what are the parts that really scare you the most?
Okay. The world I want to see um, is one without these silos. Like, yeah, yeah. That's my biggest thing. Look, I'm a millennial. I grew up on video games. Like I mentioned, World of Warcraft. I spent way too much of my life in that. I was first on MySpace, Zynga, every other dingbat social network that's existed since then and gone away. And over that time, I've made some of the best friends of my life, and some of them I don't even know how to get a hold of. I think we're in a situation right now where um, we don't have enough physical activity for people to care about at all. And what does that mean? It means that when people are sick, there's no one to come knocking because we are all physical meat sacks here. And as much as we can try to make ourselves something else, we need somebody to come knock down the door when we need help. And that comes from good community. And our communities right now, it's not that they're not good, but they're decentralized and they're fragmented all over the place. And we've lost the community that is right here that comes knocking at your door that says, "What the fuck's wrong with you? Can I help?" Right? So that's the world I imagine, which is one that the power of culture and media has people are so enamored with it, they'll do whatever to experience it and to be a part of it. And that can get manipulated, right? Ads, social networks. Like we get completely manipulated into what communities we even think we're a part of and what really matters. And I always just tell people right now, in a time of a lot of fear, is just go listen to the birds. Go listen to the bird, y'all, because if you can, like, the world is still ticking, and our problems are our own, and they're ours to fix. And the things that scare me the most is, well, other than like nightmares of idiocracy, other see, I think the thing that scares me the most is complacency. Um, It's really appetizing to want and desire optimization and efficiency for your whole life and everything you do. But I guess what I've realized after being on tour for a long time and forcing myself to be as optimal and efficient with every moment of my day is that that's exactly how you lose your soul. Like, and a lot of us have lost track of our soul. Not that we've lost it, we just lost track of it. Anyway.
I mean, that's the important thing, and one of the pieces that really resonates with what we talked about with this is the living portion of the media. Because there's so much artificial in the AI slop that's coming out, and none of it breathes, none of it has that meaning, that living that we need in media and art. And that's kind of our responsibility to not lose sight of that forest for the trees.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna cut you off because that's more of a discussion, which is harder for the people online to follow. And we're gonna move this to Discord when we're done, so you can continue in the virtual world, or you can just have lunch together, do it in real life,
Or both.
or both. I love that you're connecting the whole like theme of the whole conference, like all flourishing is mutual. Like that's good job with that. Scott, you had a question.
Yeah, so I wanted to get more into the weeds a little bit. I don't think you didn't do that enough in this, but
Maybe different weeds.
different weeds, yeah.
Different weeds.
No, I love the vision that you laid out. I think it's great. As far as scaling, I'm
Mhm.
glad you mentioned role models because LLMs are not going to get us there.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think that we're already at a point where LLMs are. There's a great paper that came out from NVIDIA on how SLMs are going to be more effective with agentic AI. And as you start integrating MCP servers and you start to really leverage those API integrations, that small targeted language models that are not hallucinating, because you know, if you look, one of the most interesting things that
Scott, is there a question in there?
yes, I'm getting, I'm
Okay.
sorry. So my question here is, I think very quickly we're going to pivot away from LLMs because of many things that we can discuss here. What do you how quickly do you think that pivot's gonna happen? And when do you think we'll start seeing role models? And when do you think we'll start seeing, small targeted language models start to be incorporated?
Yeah, so when are we gonna see world models? Is LLMs the future? Just repeating for the live stream. And so actually, I would love, Steve, I think we were just talking about this the other day, so I would love for you to pipe in here, actually.
Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing role models, but they are very much not in spatial reconstruction. And I think there's a huge opportunity to bring fragments of world modeling and spatial reconstruction into orchestration for like the live real-time production side that isn't as abstract in how we do generative world modeling, but just how do we build a space that people are coming into and, build spatial models for our real-time entertainment.
Well, and do we think LLMs, how far do LLMs get us?
I think LLMs are getting us a lot of the way there in sort of the agentic orchestration side, but I think we're basically looking at neural models for just going back to the basics for neural modeling of Gaussian reconstruction. We've been working with folks who are building like character AI that can actually stick to the plot and script for hours on end. Where LLMs lose the plot very quickly and are not appropriate to bring into a simulation and a storyline. So we're very early in world modeling and bringing it all together. And if we think about like the amount of effort it takes to build a game today, multiple years worth of labor across large teams, and how we build each of the AI orchestration elements to support team members in building that context and that content very quickly. There's going to be a lot of roles for various targeted LLMs and neural models in the reconstruction and building of living media systems. So it's effectively, when we think about a garden, it's effectively lots of different agents and systems talking together and helping the creatives build what their vision is, and keep it running, right? So it's not a static output. We're never turning the systems off. We're basically just building and snapshotting and
So as we go forward here, this looks diverse.
Yeah.
I mean, this just looks really diverse. LLMs have a role, these hyper-specific models have a role. It's all of it playing together in different ways because they're all going to have different strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, so I don't know if you mentioned the strata, but this idea that basically in the background, we have researchers and digital creatives basically maintaining LLMs, maintaining models, and basically bringing them into the garden and feeding into different elements and layers of the production strata so that you may not have to interface with them. They just are always up to date, right? That kind of continuous integration that we have in software can be brought into accelerate a lot of the production.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think with the world models specifically that gets really exciting is as production, the ways we can virtualize are new.
You may only care about one room for one particular entertainment thing, but the ability to explore and look beyond that world and
Well, and build content that's modular, right? That's a large part of the continuous integration and development is you've got to build things in a way that it can stack on each other, right? So procedural content, generative content, procedural mappings of spaces, and all of that, I think, play a huge role in how we build just media packages going forward. So, are we? All right.
So let's squeeze it in before we.
Thanks. So I'm curious, you talked about in Fortnite that, we get up to 100 players and that's kind of the limit. When I'm coming largely from theme entertainment, and so thinking in terms of a dynamic story or generative story at Disney, where you've got thousands of people that need to go through and Disney's trying to tell a story but maybe they want to start sprinkling in generative, dynamic storytelling. How do you make it so that my experience, because I toured a portion of the park in the morning, so it affects what I see later in the day because I saw somebody get carried away. But the 15 people around me or the 100 people around me haven't experienced that part of the story. How do you see an opportunity there for that sort of storytelling where it's thousands of people that are experiencing this thing? You want to make it real for them and interactive for them, but not generic or distilled so much so that I don't realize that it's responding to what my adventure through the
Well,
world is.
yeah, I would say you got to grow an onion. So the audience experiences, I think we have viewers, we have participants, we have players, and we have characters, right? And so practically how that plays out in somewhere like a Disney theme park or a theme park, amusement park in general, I think is all around like emerging display tech in various ways, whether it's personalized viewport steering, right? Where you can steer a bunch of viewports into different spaces so that you are only seeing the thing that is relative to you, or people's augmented tech they're going to wear, right, into it is obviously an obvious one too. But from a design standpoint of like creating the storytelling experience across this, I started thinking about it from the onion, right? So if I have an outer onion of viewers, say just people passively walking through, and then I've got like an inner layer of participants that are interacting, but maybe not getting full feedback. And then I have players. And those players, they might be the ones that get to enter the magic room and get to go up into the control panel and get to have this super hyper personalized thing. So as we think about this, it's just these layers of interaction and like storytelling kind of abstraction there, and how we get them to play with each other, because that onion layer represents the whole audience. So ideally there's journeys between I was a viewer and then I became a player on stage and then I went back to being a viewer, right? And because the tech's going to go a lot of places. We all have personal devices on us. But there are certain things that we still want to happen for a big group at once. And that's okay, but that's a different interaction paradigm. It's not the same thing as designing a one-to-one. So if you design a one-to-one, that's different than a 1-to-5, and that's different than, 1,000 people. Right. And so the way the story plays out and everything else has to adapt to that. And she's looking at her watch, so. She's about to burn this garden if you don't get out of here.
Leave it to winter.
Yeah.
We go in March. Let's thank our speaker.